They say there's a man who walks the suburbs after midnight. He doesn't talk. He doesn't run. He just smiles and watches you. Too wide, too still. And if you ever see him, don't smile back. Jessica was just walking home from her friend's place. A 5-minute walk. But 5 minutes can feel like forever when you know you're being followed. First, it was the feeling of eyes on her. She tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just her anxiety playing tricks. But then she saw him, standing under a broken streetlight. Tall, dressed all in black, just smiling. Like his face was stuck. It was unsettling, but Jessica tried to rationalize it. Maybe he had just got off work. Maybe he was heading home after a long shift. Or maybe, just maybe, he was waiting for someone. Someone who would come and join him in his eternal smile. Jessica didn't want to find out. She turned and walked away from him. He didn't move. But somehow he was closer. The streetlights flickered, casting dancing shadows around them. Jessica quickened her pace, but the man kept pace with her, though he never took a step. He just stood there, his smile unwavering, watching her every move. Then he stepped into her view again, this time ahead of her. She couldn't help but glance at him. His posture was rigid, almost like he wasn't breathing. Jessica wanted to scream, to make some noise, anything to break the silence of this nightmarish game they were playing. But all she could muster was a shaky breath. As she walked, she stole glances over her shoulder, half expecting to see him close the distance between them, to materialize beside her. She didn't want to run. She knew it would only make things worse. What if he could read her fear? What if her flight would be a confirmation of her impending doom? Her heart pounded against her ribs, a trapped bird desperate to escape its cage. She could hear her own breathing echoing in her ears, each inhale and exhale a battle against rising panic. When she turned toward her street, relief washed over her. She fumbled for her keys, her hands trembling. Finally, she was home. She opened the door, locked it behind her and pressed her back against it. Through the peephole, she saw no one. Had he given up? Had he decided she wasn't worth the effort? Slowly, she turned away from the door. Jessica peered through the window, her eyes scanning the darkness outside. She couldn't see him, but she could feel his presence, an oppressive weight on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She needed to calm down. She reminded herself that he wasn't there anymore. He couldn't have followed her into her house. It was locked. The deadbolt was secure. Reason, logic. These were the weapons she needed to fight the rising tide of fear. But then she saw him. In the reflection of the window pane, he was right behind her. How? How could he be inside the house with her? Panic seized her, raw and primal. She whirled around, her eyes searching the room. He wasn't there. But when she turned back to the window, he was there, grinning at her, his face illuminated by the eerie glow of the streetlights. Jessica screamed, a raw, animalistic sound that tore from her throat. But it wasn't a scream of defiance or rage. It was a scream of utter terror. She stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The glass on the table shattered, sending shards raining down. Still, he didn't move. He just smiled, his grin widening, if that was even possible. Jessica ran, blindly for the bedroom, flinging herself under the bed. She curled into a tight ball, trying to make herself as small as possible. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She closed her eyes, willing herself to disappear, to become invisible. Above her, she heard slow footsteps. They were heavy, deliberate, like the tread of a predator approaching its prey. Each step resonated with a dull thud that echoed in the confines of the small space beneath the bed. Then she heard another sound, a low humming sound. It was a monotone drone that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the room. At first it was faint, almost imperceptible, like the distant hum of a refrigerator. But as the moments ticked by, it grew louder, more insistent. It was like someone was trying not to laugh, trying to stifle a chuckle that threatened to erupt into a full-blown snicker. And yet the effort was evident, each suppressed snort sending tiny vibrations through the floorboards that tickled Jessica's cheek. Her whole body shook with silent laughter. She wanted to scream, to claw at the darkness above her, to lash out at the unseen entity that dared to mock her terror. But she was frozen, trapped in a prison of her own fear. The steps stopped directly above her. Jessica squeezed her eyes tighter, her nails digging into her palms. The humming grew louder, more insistent, until it was impossible to ignore. And then it happened. The shadow loomed over her. It was a vast darkness that blotted out the little light that filtered under the door. Jessica cowered, bracing for whatever horror he had in store for her. A sudden cold breeze swept across her face, raising goosebumps on her skin. And then the voice, raspy and low, scraped against her eardrums. "Don't smile back." With that, the world went black. Jessica vanished. When the police arrived at the house, there was no sign of a struggle. There was no forced entry. The windows were intact, the doors firmly locked from the inside. The only anomaly was the front door. It bore deep gouges as if someone had tried to claw their way out, but couldn't. Inside, the scene was even more perplexing. The house was immaculate. Jessica's purse sat on the table, her keys dangling from its strap. Her phone was on the couch, still recording. The last sound it captured was a forced laugh. It wasn't human. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The case went cold. The community, once abuzz with theories and speculations, gradually moved on. Jessica's parents, consumed with grief, retreated into themselves, seeking solace in shared misery. The news media, starved of new details, spun wild tales. Some whispered about satanic cults. Others spoke of interdimensional beings. But amidst the cacophony of conjecture, one detail stood out, the most terrifying of all. Jessica wasn't the first. Newspaper clippings from decades past surfaced, each telling the story of a young person who disappeared without a trace. Each victim was last seen being followed by a man in a suit, a man whose face was obscured by an unnerving grin. And then there were the stories on Reddit, tales spun by anonymous users, their voices echoing with the same chilling familiarity. Each narrative wove a tapestry of dread, painting a picture of a relentless stalker who seemed to exist just beyond the fringes of reality. These stories, once relegated to the dark corners of the internet, now found their way into mainstream discussions. People spoke in hushed tones, exchanging unsettling smiles, wondering if they, too, might find themselves ensnared by this specter of perpetual amusement. As the full moon hung heavy in the night sky, the unease intensified. For many, it was just a lunar cycle. For others, it was a harbinger of something sinister, a signal that he was watching. They say he walks the earth, always watching, always smiling. And if you lock your doors and hide under your beds, you might just be safe. That is, if you don't smile back. Now check out. Smile, it'll make him go away, or watch this other video instead.